Hi everyone, welcome to Sunny Day Discussions. I am Sunny Day. Today I want to go over some of the more atrocities that Republicans have been committing lately, or attempting to commit. The first one is that the Tennessee Attorney General has been confiscating unredacted medical records from Vanderbilt Clinic or hospital. I heard it both ways, so I'm not entirely clear which one it is, but Vanderbilt Hospital, I'll just refer to it as, for anyone who has sought gender-affirming care or abortion care. Vanderbilt said it had no choice but to comply to turn over the records. However, they did not inform their patients that this was going to happen until after it had already happened. He's also taken information on volunteers at that clinic. Anyone who has written into the website with questions about LGBTQ plus healthcare. And he's requesting all the records back to 2018. It seems like that they're testing the waters to see how far they can push things, to see what they can get away with. And if we allow them to get away with this or anything that they're trying to do, they're just going to push it even further. Now, there are 19 states, red states, that are doing this. And I'm not quite clear exactly on why. I'm not sure on the law if they can prosecute someone who left a state where the care that they need is illegal to go to a state where the care that they need is legal. I'm not sure the legal grounds there, but it's probably in response to a Biden administration proposed federal rule change that would prevent states from obtaining private medical information for a, quote, criminal, civil, or administrative investigation into or proceeding against any person in connection with seeking, obtaining, providing, or facilitating reproductive health care outside of the state where the investigation or proceeding is authorized and is lawful in the state where it is provided. So again, I'm not sure of the legality of if they can pursue charges in that instance. But I also want to go into being an ally for the transgender community. And not just saying you're an ally. In order to be an ally, you have to support 100% equal rights. There was a news organization that I still follow that kind of was supporting trans rights to a certain extent, and then saying that the activists, the allies, were going too far, especially when it came to allowing transgender people in sports. They're alleged, from the way I understood it, their thought process behind it was that, you know, the majority of the country is on our side until it comes to this point. So why should we push it any further? You know, let's just be grateful for what we can have and not push it. But to me, that's not actually an ally. That is a fair weather ally. Someone who's an ally when it's easy, when the majority are in consensus. But in order to be a real ally, you have to support 100% equal rights, no matter how popular it is according to the polls. So I just wanted to put that out there and say that if you want to be an ally, be an ally. Don't be a half-assed ally. Now, here's an even more atrocious thing that Republicans are doing, particularly in the state of Texas. Actually, only in the state of Texas, as far as I know. There was a Texas state trooper who works as a medic on the border who claims that his superior officers in Eagle Pass, Texas, ordered Border Patrol agents to push migrants back into the Rio Grande when they were trying to cross. And that included young children, breastfeeding mothers, infants. And it's also reported that there is razor wire deployed by troops, and it's injuring people. There was a woman who suffered a miscarriage while being entangled in the razor wire. The trooper claims that they have stepped over a line into the inhumane. He was out on a patrol when he and other troopers came across approximately 120 people, including small children and babies and nursing mothers. They called the shift commander to kind of see how to proceed from there, and the shift commander allegedly ordered them to push all of these people back into the river. Now, Greg Abbott has deployed a barrier that's razor wire wrapped around barrels that are partially submerged into the water. And these are incredibly dangerous. There was a 4-year-old girl who attempted to cross the razor wire and was pressed back by troops per orders. But then she ended up passing out. The temperatures were above 100 degrees. And so she needed treatment. She was given the treatment that she needed. But if they had just allowed her across and give her water, she wouldn't have had to pass out and put her life in danger. On that same day, a man tried to rescue his child who was stuck on the razor wire wrapped around the barrel in the river. And in doing so, he cut his leg pretty darn bad. And then on that same day, a 15-year-old kid broke his leg trying to walk around the wire in the river. His father had to carry him the rest of the way to the U.S. side. And then the miscarriage, troopers found a 19-year-old woman stuck in the razor wire in the process of a miscarriage. Also, a mother and 2 children were trying to cross. A DPS boat team found the mother and 1 child, took them to the hospital. They didn't make it. The body of the second child has never been found. Now, the razor wire is an inhumane trap. These people are human. They're fleeing horrendous conditions at their home that a lot of times the U.S. was directly or indirectly responsible in creating. And to treat them as anything less than human is just evil. And I don't understand how some people can justify that kind of cruelty to someone who's just trying to get someplace safe. And I hear a lot of Republicans talking about how, it's an open border. Biden's open border policies. That's what's causing all of this. That's why we have to do these extreme measures. But there isn't an open border policy, not in the slightest. In fact, the only differences between Trump's border policy and Biden's border policy is that the Title 42 expired. Biden reversed the ruling that separated families and tried to reunite families. Thousands of them still have not been reunited. And then the only other thing that he changed was the Remain in Mexico policy. That's it. And in fact, since Biden took office, thanks to Kamala Harris, illegal border crossings have gone down by 70%. Now, it's currently U.S. law that it is perfectly legal to cross the U.S. border from Mexico and turn yourself in immediately to the proper authorities to claim refugee status. That's legal. So the vast majority of these people trying to cross into our country are legal. Whether you like that law or you don't, that's the law. If you don't like it, maybe try to fix it. We need complete and total immigration reform. It's underfunded and overwhelmed. So we need to have that discussion. But the only discussion that Republicans are willing to have on that is let's just close it. And the vast majority of illegal immigrants are from Europe that just overstay their visas. The vast majority of drugs coming across the southern border are by American residents who go to Mexico, get the drugs, and then bring them back to our country. So all of their rhetoric about their drug dealers, their all these bad people, are there some? Yeah. But there's a lot of white people that are bad people too. So we definitely need to have a conversation about immigration reform, but this is not the way to address the issue. By having these inhumane policies, by torturing and tormenting these people that just want to have a safe place to be. Now, another thing that Republicans are trying to do is they want to cut America's Clean Water Program funding by 62%. A GOP appropriations bill for the fiscal year 2024 celebrates proposed cuts to wasteful spending, It reins in the EPA and limits the abuse of the Endangered Species Act and provides protections for the fossil fuel industries. Now, it seems to me that with this budgetary proposal, they want to take us back to before Nixon established the EPA, when the rivers were so polluted that the surface of them would be on fire, that we would not be able to have safe drinking water, that we would face unmitigated toxic water threats. All in the name of, allegedly, to their point, wasteful spending. But how is it wasteful? Having clean drinking water should be a human right. It is a human right. But apparently the GOP doesn't see it that way. They see it as wasteful spending. And in the middle of this environmental crisis that we're in, that they do not believe is actually happening, they don't believe it exists, they're doing nothing to mitigate it. Neither are Democrats, to be honest. They're doing more than Republicans, but nowhere near enough. And the Democrats, that are speaking out and saying we need to do something are basically being ignored by everyone else. So in the midst of this crisis that we're in, Republicans don't want to do anything to mitigate it. In fact, they want to exacerbate it. Let's make it worse. And in my opinion, in their minds, they're thinking, well, if something happens, we'll be fine. We can afford to import drinking water. We can afford to build homes that are air conditioned and heated. We can afford to move if the environment that we are living in becomes uninhabitable. But the vast majority of people aren't going to be able to have that luxury. if, say, like in Arizona, where it's been over 110 degrees, if it keeps climbing and that area becomes uninhabitable, you're going to have a whole new refugee crisis, but it's going to be within this country. You're going to have people fleeing the hot areas to go to the cooler ones. You're going to have people fleeing the hurricane-struck and tornado-struck and fire-struck states to try to find someplace that's safer. But there's not very many places that are safe from those kind of disasters. So where would people go? And, you know, I know that China's bad. They're a major contributor to the pollution. India's terrible. But the more countries that get on board with helping to mitigate this climate crisis, the more they can pressure those countries that are contributing more into participation. In fact, China has done a lot of things to help mitigate their pollution. Not enough. None of us have done enough. Now back to the clean water, because I kind of got on a rant there. A U.S. geological survey suggests that 45% of this nation's drinking water is contaminated with forever chemicals. And forever chemicals are chemicals that stay in the environment or in the human body for long periods of time. And that's already the case. I mean, look at Flint, Michigan. They still don't have clean drinking water there. Because politicians like to sit on their butt. Because doing something about it requires courage and money. And it's more important to politicians to keep money in their own pockets so that they can see themselves as better. Now, there is a little bit of light in the news. And, you know, yeah, Trump's going to be indicted again. That's going to go on forever. We all know, or anyone with critical thinking skills knows that he is the most criminal president in history. But that's not what this is about, although that is good news. This is about the fact that the Michigan Attorney General has actually filed forgery and other felony charges against 16 members of the Republican Party who were the fake electors. These Republicans signed papers in 2020 indicating that they were the duly elected or duly appointed electors, though this is false. Their defense when caught was that it was a contingency plan that was intended to buttress legal moves by Trump. However, that claim fizzled out in the courts. And the Attorney General of Michigan said that any challenge to the election had already been denied, dismissed, or rejected by the time these fake electors convened to hatch this plot. Now, each of these fake electors, defendants, are facing 1 count each of conspiracy to commit forgery, 2 counts of forgery, 1 count of conspiracy to commit uttering and publishing. If you're like me, you're like, what the heck is that? But it is a crime related to the forgery or counterfeiting of important documents and then attempting to pass them off as legitimate. So there is the... Oh, where am I? The conspiracy, sorry, I apologize. The conspiracy to commit uttering and publishing. And then 1 count of actually uttering and publishing. And 1 count of conspiracy to commit election forgery. And 2 counts of actual election forgery. Each offense is a felony with a maximum punishment ranging from 5 years in prison on some charges and up to 14 years in prison on others. So that is a good thing. And I know that in Arizona, they're starting to look into that, the fake electors conspiracy as well. They just haven't moved as far along as Michigan. So that is a little bit of a light in these darker times. And I just find it ironic that with all the things that I've gone over today, Republicans are constantly screaming about a tyrannical government and warning their constituents of a tyrannical government and citing the Second Amendment, that we have to have that Second Amendment with no restrictions so we can combat a tyrannical government. But the thing is, and they don't see this because they lack such self-awareness, is that they are the tyrannical government. They are small government in certain instances, but that's only in instances where a big government works and helps, such as the EPA and all the environment and the FDA. All of those programs work, and they're government programs. But where they are tyrannical and are big government is in people's personal lives. There was an ad I saw recently that actually was quite uncomfortable, but it was an image of a couple preparing for intimacy. They reach for protection, and there was a Republican senator sitting there. And he was like, I was just elected. Now I've got to make sure you're not going to do anything wrong in this bedroom. So I'm going to watch. And while they're not actually physically in everybody's bedrooms or doctor's offices or homes, their legislation is. Their fear of something that is not straight, cis, Christian, and white makes them that tyrannical government, because they want to control everything that they disagree with or are scared of. And that is a tyranny. They are, a lot of people will say, leaning towards the fascist side of politics. Well, I disagree. They are the fascist side of politics. There is no leaning about it, and I think the mainstream media needs to start calling it like it is, because a lot of the independent media pundits all agree that they have moved into that fascist state. I mean, they idolize fascist leaders around the world. The leader of Hungary, Putin, North Korea, all of those leaders, they seem to idolize and are very okay with Trump's admission of wanting to have full government control. He wants to have his hand in every government agency where he has supreme say. That is a fascist dictatorship. That's what's happening. Now, a quick touch on the lack of self-awareness. I know it's a longer video, sorry. But a quick touch on the lack of self-awareness for Republicans kind of rears its head in Maria Bartiromo on Fox News. She was recently bitching about why Hunter Biden is always there. It's always in people's faces. Why they have to see him all the time. Excuse me? The reason you have to see him all the time, that he's in your face all the time, is because you won't shut up about him. You won't shut up about your conspiracy that's the Biden crime family. You are lacking self-awareness in the fact that this problem that you see of Hunter Biden being everywhere is directly caused by Republicans' obsession with him. And their obsession and their need to prove that the Bidens are just as corrupt as the Trumps. Well, they've had 5 years of investigations to prove it, and they can't. Because there's nothing there. And they claim that Trump's, Russia investigation, all of that was nothing there either, but it was. That Russia investigation brought about a lot of arrests, and Trump pardoned a lot of those arrests. So it just blows my mind, the lack of self-awareness and the projection that they put on the opposition party. Everything that they're saying that Biden is doing, the weaponizing of the DOJ, is exactly what Trump did when he was in office, and exactly what he says he's going to do even more so if he gets elected again. But they don't see that because that's what they agree with. They agree with what Trump is doing because they agree with, he doesn't have policies, but with what he says. And so they're okay with that kind of fascism. But any perception of governmental control on the Democrat side, and they're screaming and clutching their pearls about the fascist takeover of the Democrats. Well, honestly, every Democrat I've ever spoken to, and I surround myself with a lot of them, say that if Joe Biden is found guilty, if there's enough evidence, take him to trial. If he's found guilty, convict him, whether he's in office or not. That's the difference. Republicans wouldn't want to convict Trump, no matter how much the evidence points to guilty. That's a huge difference between the parties. Both of them are corrupt, yes, but they're different extents. So that was the end of my rant for today. Like, share, subscribe, vote. No matter how big, small, inconsequential, your vote matters, and read everything you can get your hands on. Thank you, and I will see you next time.